Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Well, so here we go, the violence, the threats continue, and it's not surprising why. For this to stop, for the violent left to stop, it would require Democrats actually doing the right thing. But as we've been covering for years at this point, but especially recently following the murder of Charlie Kirk, they're refusing to do the right thing, refusing to call off their dogs. They're not condemning the attacks, they're not even acknowledging the reality of the rise in left-wing violence and terrorism, and so the pattern repeats itself, and likely it's only going to get worse from here. Conservatives are continuing to get targeted, assaulted, threatened, and murdered, all while Democrats stay silent and make excuses. They refuse to rein in their own extremists, and it's probably because those extremists are really secretly doing what the left really wants done. They're doing the dirty work, intimidating the right, trying to silence dissent and intimidate the right by fear. And now, well, we've got another victim. Benny Johnson and his family are now added to the list, as a deranged leftist was just arrested for sending death threats to his home. And of course, taking it to the next level, not just death threats targeting Benny Johnson, but also his family and his children. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on as the left's descent into madness continues. We've got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so just take a look at this.
The individual who wrote me described why he wanted me dead. I was a white, cis, Christian Trump supporter. They described in great detail how I would be killed in an open field just like Charlie. This individual described orphaning my 4 beautiful children and widowing my wife with great joy. You might want to say another left-wing radical, another extremist. Violence has been mainstreamed by the Democrat Party. It is not extremist, it is mainstream. And we need a moment of reckoning here. This has to stop. This cycle must end. Is any Democrat courageous enough to disavow violence? To call for individuals that espouse these things, like what happened to my family, or what's happening in Virginia, to call for those kind of candidates to step down? Will Democrats vote for that? Because if you're voting for that, then implicitly you're encouraging it. You're endorsing it. I don't want political violence. I want peace in my nation. I love this country. I want to be able to debate like Charlie did. I want to be able to raise my family in peace. That is our birthright. But you cannot make peace with evil as a Christian. You cannot unite with people who want you dead. I want unity in this nation. I want to be able to agree on more than what we disagree on. But for that first to happen, we must understand the battle. No matter who you are, you should say, this is a country where families should be able to raise their children safely, where people can have peaceful disagreements, and where we can all live together under one American flag. I just want to profoundly thank the Trump administration and federal law enforcement and local law enforcement for saving my family. I will never forget it. It is the greatest goodness that has ever been done to me. And that is a thing that every American can get behind. The Trump administration making America safe again.
So the man who threatened Benny Johnson and his family has been now arrested and charged federally, as he should be. And I got to double up here on what Benny Johnson was saying. Thank God that this administration is acting on this stuff. President Trump, Pam Bondi, the Department of Justice, stepped in immediately and protected this family under left-wing threat of violence. And I also have to point out what's continually disturbing and disheartening. Where's the outrage from the Democrats? Well, as you might expect, there is none. They're pretending as if this story doesn't exist. You know, could you imagine if it was a left-winger again who was facing these kinds of public threats? It would be non-stop MAGA scare terrorism 24/7 coverage. But here we have somebody arrested for threatening to kill Benny Johnson, and not even a peep. But of course, that's not surprising, considering the entirety of the left-wing mainstream media apparatus only gave 63 seconds of coverage to Jay Jones wishing death upon his opponents and their children, not to mention pissing on their graves.
You might be curious, how was this covered on the mainstream networks? Well, according to the Media Research Center, NBC gave it about 63 seconds to airtime. And as you see, ABC, CBS, PBS, we're not interested in the story altogether.
Yeah, only 63 seconds from NBC News. That's it. Every other supposedly neutral outlet providing literally 0 seconds in coverage. No accountability for the escalation in left-wing terror. Nowhere. And it's no surprise why, because they don't actually care. They saw what happened to Charlie Kirk, murdered in cold blood, and none of these left-wing opinion people across the social media stood up and said enough is enough. Instead, they keep pouring gasoline on the fire. Zero accountability, and of course the demonization campaign continues. It's not just right-wing influencers, now it's federal employees, federal agents. And if you want proof of that terror threat escalating, well, just listen to this leaked recording of a violent leftist calling an ICE agent's family and threatening them.
Hi, I'm just calling to say, assuming you're married to and with a last name like that, I don't know how you let your husband work for ICE and you sleep at night. You, your family. I hope your kids get deported by accident. How do you sleep? You. Did you hear what happened to the Nazis after World War II? Because that's what's going to happen to your family.
That right there is the sound of left-wing extremism. And what's crazy is, again, what side do the Democrats take? Well, we know exactly what they're doing. Instead of going after the terrorists on their side, they continue to demonize these ICE officers, and Gavin Newsom is trying to unmask these ICE officers. In other words, putting them further into harm's way, making it easier to dox them, intimidate them, threaten their families, or of course, most dangerously, putting them in literal harm's way where they could be murdered. And so you see the pattern here. Democrats protect the agitators, protect the terrorists. They give them cover, they empower them. And of course, they create the disinformation framework that justifies their actions, that creates the call to action to begin with. If you need any proof of that, look at what Dan Goldman just said.
I can guarantee you,
and you don't want to deal with
that
the fact
you are on the wrong side
it.
of history, because this president is authoritarian and he is a fascist.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
Saying
no, time out. That is assassination prep language. That is no. I'm sorry. There is
that
violence
is
against
not
Republicans.
inciting violence.
Oh wait. Hold on.
Characterize the actions.
Hold on a
So
second.
sad.
The anti-democratic
I've had to
actions
say this a couple
that this
times.
president is
I've had to say this a
consistently
couple
taking,
times on the
including
show.
canceling the First Amendment.
Here he is again, calling Trump a literal fascist. And he says, well, I'm standing by it because it's an accurate statement. But funnily enough, he can't actually explain it or justify it. No, I guess because Dan Goldman said it, it must be true. Dan Goldman's certainly known for being an honest politician, not like he lied last week about a MAGA arson attack on a judge's home. But he also questioned in that clip, well, how is accurately describing my political opponents as fascists equate to incitement to violence? Well, first of all, you're not accurately describing them as fascists, you are lying. And secondly, well, when you call your opponents fascists, what you're doing is telling your followers that Trump and his supporters are Hitler and Nazis. You're essentially giving them moral permission for violence and resistance. You're making the argument that resistance by any means necessary, including murder, is justified. And people wonder why I choose to stay anonymous. In the past, I've been called a coward. But you know what? If that's the case, then yeah, I guess I'm a freaking coward. I'd rather not have my family deal with death threats. I'd rather keep my wife and my child safe. And really, the reality is there's enough people out there, there's enough influencers and famous people. I just want to stick to the ideas. I have no interest in being a household name, having my face plastered places, having an agent, being a celebrity. I don't want any of it, and I want to be safe. I've known since day one that I started this channel that had I put myself out there, I'd be in danger. That's been clear since day one. It's clear to every single conservative. You cannot do public events as a conservative without a serious security detail. Every time you are out there, you face threats of assault, violence, and potentially murder, as would happen to Charlie Kirk. And this will continue. It will continue to escalate as long as Democrats keep doing the wrong thing. And I could pretty much guarantee you, knowing these Democrats, covering them for years, well, that's their MO, continuing to do the wrong thing. Democrats will not stop this, ever. The only time this stops is when they win an election. The moment their power is in question or they're the minority party, all of a sudden, it's really a no-holds-barred approach. And I'm just thankful that this administration has taken the kid gloves off. No more playing games with these violent extremists. Act and act forcefully. Hold these violent extremists accountable. Put them in federal prison and hit them with the biggest charges you can justify. If the Democrats won't do their job, well, then Trump will. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.